You don't have to resort to such low-level tactics if you want to get promoted, right? There was no one else in the meeting room. Group President Gao Sheng looked at me with a playful smile. My heart felt like it was punched and was beating wildly. It turns out that nothing can escape his eyes. 01. Just now, we were having a video conference with two old white guys. Whether or not the company can win the Greater China distribution of this new international hair care brand directly affects whether the company can take a step forward. Important step. To this end, our department has been working overtime for more than half a month. Success or failure depends on this one move. As for the specific data, my boss Su Meiling has always been confident in herself, but at this moment, her face turned red and she suddenly lost her composure. Everyone present held their breath, carefully watching the expression on Party A's face, fearing that the deal would fail. All efforts were in vain. Well, Su Meiling was still rummaging through the papers in the folder. I sat up straight and watched coldly. Where's the data? Data? Su Meiling glared at Xiao Li and growled. I gave it to you. Xiao Li immediately came over and helped Su Meiling find it. One of the old men frowned and coughed twice. Su Meiling quickly forced a smile towards the big screen. Just second. I raised my lips slightly and glanced at the trash can in the corner. I knew it was time to take action. I had memorized the data on that piece of paper by heart, just to come to the rescue at such a critical moment. I adjusted my sitting position and was about to stand up to speak when Xiao Gaosheng, who had been listening silently, suddenly spoke up before I could. In the face of the problem, he spoke fluent English and accurately presented a series of key data. I was so shocked that I couldn't close my mouth for a long time. The cooperation was naturally reached. After the meeting, I deliberately stayed in the meeting room and pretended to pick up the remaining documents on the table. Actually, it was to take the paper ball out of the trash can and destroy the evidence of his tampering. Unexpectedly, Gao Sheng turned back and said in a cold tone, "You are still brave and careful." I shuddered and quickly put my hands behind my back. Looking at that face with thick eyebrows, big eyes and deep features, I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. My brain was working rapidly, trying to think of a way to. I tried to explain myself, but he just put his hands in his pockets and walked away expressionlessly. I froze in place. No wonder he had to speak before me. It turns out he had seen through my trick and destroyed it easily. I painstakingly created this performance opportunity. Aha, what if he finds out? He had no idea that my ambition was not just to get a promotion, my real goal was to hook him. Since I joined this company 2 years ago, my goal has never changed and has become more determined. I've stripped him naked in my mind 8 million times. My name is Yuan Jia, and I was born in Jiangnan. My father is in the woolen yarn business, and he is a well-known figure in the local area. Ever since I can remember, my mother has consciously cultivated my academic taste. While other kids were playing outside, she was forcing me to memorize French words. Other students were busy attending extracurricular classes. At that time, I was memorizing car logos and learning how to dress. My mother's goal was very clear. When I reached the legal age for marriage, she would marry me to a businessman who was richer than my family partner. At first, they wanted to marry me to Uncle Li's family. But after a few years, his family's business went bankrupt, and there was no sign of recovery. My mother immediately broke off the engagement and sold me to the second son of Uncle He's family. Don't you care only about money? You don't care about feelings or kindness at all? My father protested loudly. Yeah, otherwise can I marry you? Dad, you're right to listen to me. Dad is what my mother said to my father. Exclusive name of. But things never go as planned. Before I could even step into the He family's doorstep, my family's business also went into a slump. I was once a very popular person, but suddenly no one wanted me anymore. My mother decisively divorced my father and ran away with the private money she had accumulated over the years. That's right, she has no feelings for my dad. She married him only because he is rich. My father didn't believe in fate. He used his good reputation to scrape together some money and try to revive the business. It's too late to regret. Although his business didn't turn around, his heart turned around. He met my stepmother Xiao Liang, and his life began to blossom again. He married her against all odds just because she cared for him when he was down and out, which was totally different from my mother who only cared about money. The difference? He was determined to make a comeback within 3 years, but ended up losing even more miserably and even sold his house. My newly pregnant stepmother secretly went to get an abortion. She pocketed the most valuable things in the house. He just walked away, leaving behind a mess. On the day my stepmother left, my father climbed up the tall chimney and stayed there for more than 5 hours. When he came down, I said coldly, "Don't you dislike girls and want someone to give you a son? Well, where's your son? Don't I have to stay with you?" He was speechless. I added, "When I catch a rich guy, our family might become prosperous again." He stared at me for a long time before saying, "You are just like your mother, you are a slut." Yes, I am a bitch. All my goals and methods are copied and pasted from my mother. But I, a bitch, never gave in to reality and quickly adapted to the life of falling from a little princess to a Cinderella. I studied hard while working 2 or 3 odd jobs to get myself into a prestigious school and to support my father's drinking and smoking and help him pay off his debts. Fortunately, I have a high degree, good looks, and a good tongue, so I managed to get in this well-known company. In just over a year, with my intelligence and talent, my business level has already surpassed those of the older and more experienced people by a large margin. Replacing Department Director Sue Miling is just a matter of time or opportunity. Everything I have now is earned through my own hard work. I firmly believe that there is nothing I can't get as long as I want it, including the man named Gao Sheng. I went to the tea room to make coffee and accidentally found Sue Miling looking around and sneaking into the president's office. She quickly closed the door. Mahogany door. Seeing that there was no one around, I tiptoed to the door. At first, there was no sound inside, only the sound of my own heartbeat. After a while, I heard the sound of pulling the chair very carefully, very lightly. Just as I was about to get closer, a boy's voice suddenly came out from inside. "Look, this is my new painting." "Of," Sue Miling said in a very gentle tone. "Wow, the baby is great. He is really a little genius." Then the boy laughed so sweetly that it made me feel uneasy. I listened for a long time, and the room became dead silent. Then I left. I was walking back with my cup of latte when I saw Sue Miling sneaking out again. The moment she looked at me, her pupils dilated visibly. "What are you looking at? Have you finished the plan? The boss has already said. It's urgent. It must be submitted before 3 o'clock. After saying that, she rolled her eyes, shook her long wine-red hair, and walked away swaying her hips, leaving behind a pungent scent. Taste of water. When I returned to my workstation, I was feeling very nervous. I had heard rumors before that Gao Sheng had secretly married and had children, but I never believed it. But what happened just now? If he really already has a family, then I'm out of luck, right? Should I stop loss in time and change my target? After much thought, I looked through my WeChat address book and contacted a private detective. I transferred 2,000 yuan to him and asked him to use his connections to help check Gao Sheng's household registration information. After more than an hour of anxious waiting, I got the answer. He was not married and had no children. The unexpected bonus was that his parents both passed away 8 years ago in a traffic accident. I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But the boy's laughter soon echoed in my mind again. All kinds of speculations were running wild in my mind, making me lose focus on work, but fortunately I was efficient and had already. That plan is finished. I clicked on Gao Sheng's Zhihu account and read every answer he liked, from the domestic real estate bubble to the international financial crisis. The situation of integration, from the largest known galaxy in the nearby universe, UGC 2885, to the thermal design of the 5 most powerful CPUs. Consumption. Well, I have a wide range of interests and knowledge. Although I can be considered a top student, my vision is still far inferior to his. I began to doggy paddle through the vast amount of information, not missing any clues. Hard work pays off. After nearly an hour of hard work, I finally found his Zhihu homepage personalized domain name by searching. I searched for his Weibo account, which has few fans. The ID is called 霸占大白兔乐. The night before yesterday, he liked a radio drama. I looked around to make sure no one was paying attention to me, then quietly put on my headphones. I held my breath and clicked the link. This is an urban-themed unit suspense drama. Each episode is more than 10 minutes long and is an independent short story in which someone is always killed. The protagonist is a 5-year-old boy, innocent and cute, but with an IQ higher than that of an average adult. Uncover the real culprit through the details and get a reward from Mom, a white rabbit candy. I listened to 4.5 episodes at double speed, and the boy's voice filled my head. Uncle Police, he is the bad guy. Of course I have evidence. Mom, am I awesome? The voice in the earphones was exactly the same as the one I had just heard at the door of the president's office, but I could hardly tell. Such a clear and crisp child's voice matches Gao Sheng's cold poker face. It's hard to imagine that he actually has this hobby in private. Yuan Jia, where's the plan? I was startled by Su Meiling's shout. I looked at the time in the lower right corner of the monitor. 2:57. Only then did he put the plan card points that he had already checked into her mailbox. In addition to the plan given to Su Meiling, I actually prepared another one about the development of the company's corporate culture. Some recommendations. I plan to hand it over to Gao Sheng personally. Of course, I understand that I cannot report to a higher level, but my suggestions have completely gone beyond the department leader Su Mei. It's no use telling her about Ling's business scope. So, I created a perfect opportunity for myself to get close to the president and show him my other aspects of workability. I want him to feel that I am somewhat different compared to other employees. The next morning, after the new project meeting, I quickly took the 3 pieces of paper and avoided Su Meiling while Gao Sheng was still there. Followed to the president's office. If you have anything to say, talk to your boss. I'm very busy. He sat down on the leather swivel chair without closing his eyes. I didn't back down at all. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "It's about corporate culture. As a member of the company, I have summarized several practical optimization suggestions from my own perspective. I hope you can." After that, I didn't give him a chance to refuse. I turned the document over and handed it to him. He then glanced at it, hesitated, picked it up, and began to scan it expressionlessly. Still looking at him straight, let him give me some feedback immediately. When he saw the second page, the corners of his mouth moved noticeably. I instantly felt confident and waited for the boss to appreciate my work. Look, but at this moment, I suddenly smelled a pungent perfume. Su Meiling was standing at the door. I don't know who told her the secret. Your proposal is not up to standard, go back and revise it. You can't even do your job well, and you still have the energy to worry about other things? As expected of Su Meiling, she destroyed the boss's good impression of me with just 2 sentences. I really want to ask her what is wrong with my plan, but I held back. If someone is looking for trouble with you, no matter how you defend yourself, it will be in vain and you will only make yourself look bad. Wolf. What's more, the person who is finding fault is your boss. What's more, it happened in front of the big boss. Su Meiling pursed her lips and glared at me fiercely, but I knew she was just seeing that I had some feelings for Gao Sheng. She was afraid that I would threaten her position. After all, the older the better, and she is not that easy to deal with. After a few seconds of stalemate, I moved towards Gao Sheng's desk and tried to take the document back. Unexpectedly, Gao Sheng suddenly stretched out a hand, spread out his 5 fingers, and pressed the document. It's already been written, so just leave it here for now. His voice was still very low, and no emotion could be heard. I glanced at Su Meiling and she was obviously surprised as well. But just when I was secretly happy and felt that I had won the first battle, Gao Sheng said coldly, "Since you didn't do your job well, I'll punish you to rewrite it. Both proposals, hand them in before the end of get off work on Friday." Su Meiling raised the corners of her mouth, revealing a very proud expression. Before I could reply, Gao Sheng added, "Just give it to me." Su Meiling's eyes widened. I readily accepted the order. Su Meiling naturally couldn't swallow this. As soon as I returned to my workstation, she started to yell at me in front of all my colleagues. Yang said angrily, "Some people really don't know how much they are worth." Everyone's eyes were on me at the same time, but I sat straight without a trace of emotion on my face and clicked the mouse twice. Create a blank document and start writing a new plan. I know exactly what my goal is. I also know what I should care about and what I don't care about. Seeing that I didn't respond, Su Meiling started to mess around with the things on her desk, slamming and knocking things around, deliberately making loud noises. Ring. But I remained unmoved, my ideas flowed freely, and my 10 fingers typed quickly on the keyboard. She muttered a few more words such as, "I'm just a few years younger. I think I'm pretty. Isn't that shameless?" Such sour words. I was secretly delighted when I heard this slander represents jealousy, which is essentially the highest degree of affirmation. It was not until she called me a bitch that I jumped up from my chair, in the eyes of all my colleagues. Wearing high heels, she walked quickly to Sue, smiling. "What are you doing? I didn't scold you so you feel guilty?" I've seen people picking up money, but I've never seen people scolding. The office platform was extremely quiet. Everyone stopped typing and was looking forward to a good show. But I'm not that stupid and I would never argue with my boss. I smiled and said in a gentle voice that most people could hear, "Sister Myling, my share. What needs to be improved in this plan? If you have time, please teach me." Sue Myling could only swallow the unpleasant words, her face turning red. She was in a dilemma. Under the gaze of all her colleagues, she had to change her tone. Click on the "I'll split your plan and start the egg. Find faults." These are all small places that can be changed or not. After struggling for a long time, I barely managed to put together 4 places, one of which was the beginning of the paragraph. "Alignment," I exclaimed. "Sister Myling is really good. I really learned it. I don't know when I can reach the level of Sister Myling." Half of. Sue Myling had a very complicated expression, raised her chin and said, "That's enough for you to learn, don't lose heart." I smiled and thanked him, then sat back at my workstation. Just now, while Sue Myling was talking, I quietly handed over the recruitment brochure of the rival company, inserted into her file rack. This is my second step to bring her down. At 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, I delivered the 2 revised new plans to the president's office. Gao Sheng was resting with his eyes closed in the massage chair, his back to me, and he didn't say anything. I put the file on his desk and gently backed out. It would be too dramatic to talk to him any further, so I have to stop now. This is how the interaction in the company went for the time being, and I began to think about changing sides. When I was leaving, the secretary's office was open. I made eye contact with Gao Sheng's male secretary, Xiaotang, and went in to chat with him. Chatted for a while. I complimented him on his new tie, and he complimented me on how my skirt matched my skin tone. He recently got a new girlfriend and they are in the honeymoon period. So I gave him some advice and told him what girls like. Gift, which dessert is particularly delicious. He was so excited that he even picked up a small notebook and wrote down what I said one by one. While he wasn't looking at me, I glanced at the computer screen next to him, which showed Gao Sheng's schedule. The day after tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, he will go to Earl's Club, a famous high-end hot spring club in the local area. On the way back to the department, I couldn't wait to take out my cell phone and start searching for information about Earl Hui. Without hesitation, I immediately ordered the package. I got up at 6 on Sunday and started to dress up. I carefully selected my uniform and finally decided to wear a burgundy uniform. The tight skirt, paired with black stockings, highlights the slim figure and is full of femininity. In the taxi, the driver kept talking nonsense. I didn't have the heart to pay attention to him. As the destination got closer and closer, excited and nervous. I arrived more than half an hour in advance, but I didn't rush in. Instead, I found a secluded seat in the lobby on the first floor. Observed secretly. At 9:58, Gao Sheng arrived at the store. He was dressed casually in a white t-shirt, black shorts, and a pair of large sunglasses. He has an upright posture and outstanding temperament. The owner of the club came out to greet him personally, smiling and bowing. With a poker face, he said only 1 or 2 short sentences before being led by the boss and 2 waiters to rush to the "Go inside." I counted to 5 in my mind before I stood up and followed him. The corridor was very quiet and dimly lit. I walked behind them on tiptoe, afraid of being discovered, and always kept a distance of more than 10 meters from them. Distance. Gao Sheng entered a room. Just when I felt my heart was about to jump out of my throat, a man suddenly spoke from behind me. "Miss, how can I help you?" I was startled, and when I came to my senses, I saw that it was a very young waiter with big eyes and a bright smile. "Are those rooms for rest?" I asked. "No, that's an indoor hot spring in a private room." I thanked him and was about to go forward, but the waiter called me. "Miss, do you have a membership card?" I shook my head and showed him the ticket. Sorry, our private rooms are only for VIP customers. His smile was nice, but what he said made me uncomfortable. So I topped up 5,000 yuan and got a membership card. Finally, no one stopped me. The waiter arranged a hot spring room for me, which was right next to Gao Shang's. Although it is called a single room, it is actually like an outdoor swimming pool in a high-end hotel, except that the pool is warm and there was a light mist. I closed the door, took off my long skirt and put on a sky blue bikini. I soaked in the pool for nearly 10 minutes. His body flushed and his forehead was covered with sweat. Then he wrapped himself in a bath towel, opened the door and went out. Standing in front of the next door, I took 2 deep breaths. Then I pushed the door hard and Gao Shang, shirtless, came into my sight. Oh, sorry. I didn't know there was someone inside. I pretended to be panicked and pretended to close the door. Return. My heart trembled, there really was hope. I then looked inside, fetched the towel with one hand, covered my mouth with the other and said in surprise, "Boss Gao? How could it be? Such a coincidence." Mist surrounded him. I heard him snort coldly and I guess he was about to say, "Yeah, I think so too," in the next second. What a coincidence, and other sarcastic remarks. But I won't give him such a chance. I want to catch him by surprise. I rolled my eyes and said in an impatient tone, "Speechless. I still have to face the boss's stinky face on the weekend." After saying that, he was about to leave. "Stop." I stopped. "What do you mean? My face is sour? You don't want to see me." I curled my lips and was silent for 2 seconds before saying, "I was punished and tortured by you at the company, and I can't even have peace on my day off." He still had no expression on his face, but his eyes became noticeably sharper. "Are you also a member of his family? TSK, don't look down on me." He grinned and asked, "Then why did you come to my room?" I then said the answer I had prepared long ago. "The water in my room is not clean, and I can't call a waiter, so I thought about change the room. Who would have thought I'd run into you again?" I stared at his full chest muscles, appearing calm on the surface, but actually swallowing my saliva secretly. He finally realized that he was only wearing a pair of swimming trunks and frowned. "Have you seen enough?" I rolled my eyes again, pretending to be disgusted with him, and made a gesture to leave. "Then come over and hang out at the bar," he said coldly. I looked at him sideways. "Don't let me get you wrong. Let's talk about the 2 plans you submitted the day before yesterday. They have a lot of loopholes." I bit my lip and glared. "Why, you're disappointed? Please respect yourself. Although this is not a company, I can still sue you for sexual harassment." After saying that, I closed the door, tore off the bath towel, revealing my proud figure, and stepped into the pool under his gaze. He was at one end of the pool and I was at another, face to face. I deliberately didn't avoid his gaze. After more than 10 seconds, he was the first to look away and began to criticize my plan. I have to say that he has a really good memory. He can remember some details clearly even though I almost forgot them. But unlike Su Meiling, he can indeed talk about a lot of things that I haven't considered, which makes me have to admire him. Just after I finished talking about the first plan, the huge dolphin spray device on the left side of the pool suddenly sprayed a stream of water. I was startled and the water splashed into my eyes. Gao Shang smiled contemptuously. "It seems you don't come here often. Is this your first time?" I quickly explained, "I'm always next door and there's no such thing in that room." His face was gloomy again, and it was unclear whether he believed it or not. The dolphin sprayed again, and the water splashed directly onto my face, causing me to dodge. However, he was not affected at all. I thought he would be a gentleman and invite me over for a drink. But he didn't. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. I felt a strong sense of failure. Since I was a teenager, no boy had ever. Sex is so attractive to me. I was thinking about it when he suddenly stood up from the water, not grabbing a bathrobe, just wearing his black swimming trunks. Wave it in front of me generously. His muscles are well proportioned. His back is a perfect inverted triangle. He is tall and has a natural aura. The whole person looks like an exquisite art sculpture. I didn't know where to put my eyes for a moment, but I couldn't help but want to peek. But he actually put on his bathrobe, picked up his clothes, stopped soaking, and left. Before pushing the door, he coldly said, "For the second option, I'll let Su Meiling tell you tomorrow." Stay a little longer, it's quite expensive after all. Then he left in a very cool way. The dolphin suddenly started spraying water again, splashing my face again. My competitive spirit was completely aroused. I really don't believe it. I want to catch this pretentious guy and make him fall in love with me. After soaking in the club for less than half an hour, I came out of the club in a bad mood. His stern expression still floats in my mind. I have to admit that his eyes, coupled with that sharp face, the face with distinct angles, is really charming. It feels like there is grass growing in my heart. I boldly began to imagine. When this guy is in love, does he also have this cold expression like a creditor? Would you whisper "baby" in the other person's ear in a low voice? I felt my face getting hot, so I quickly put on my sunglasses and went shopping to find 2 more rope. I felt a little unwilling that the skirt was worn in vain, so I decided to dress up and go to work tomorrow. Just as I was about to turn a corner, I caught sight of Sue Miling. She always wears colorful clothes and a beige oversized hat, which makes her stand out in the crowd. I quickly took 2 steps back and leaned against the wall to look at her. The wind was blowing, and I could almost smell the perfume on her body. She was standing at the door of the cafe, talking to an elegant middle-aged man. I took off my sunglasses and looked carefully at the man's face. The more I looked, the more familiar he looked. My brain was working fast. Finally, I thought of a name. To further confirm, I quickly took out my mobile phone and searched on Baidu. I found a bunch of photos. After repeated comparisons, I finally confirmed that the person was the vice president of another rival company. It was like God was helping me. Sue Miling walked right into my path. Seeing the man turning to leave, I quickly raised my phone to take a photo for evidence, and also took a photo of the cafe's facade. I'm one step closer to bringing down Sue Miling. Although he failed to take down Gao Sheng in one fell swoop, it was a blessing in disguise. The next day at work, I dressed extra nicely. Sue Miling started to make a fuss again, and continued to suppress me in a tense manner. I still turned a deaf ear to it and just laughed it off, because that's exactly what I want. The more hysterical she is, the better it will be for my plan. In the afternoon, I met Secretary Tang again in the tea room. The afternoon tea you recommended to me is really good. My girlfriend likes it very much. I smiled and said, "That's what I told you. I'll recommend a few more places to you later. They have everything to eat and play. I guarantee you'll have a worry-free date." He was very happy and chatted with me for a while. When I came out, I casually mentioned, "Why did Mr. Wang from the marketing department resign? Was it really because of Kong Rongta? Poached?" He stopped smiling instantly. His lips trembled slightly. He didn't respond but nodded slightly. I sighed quietly. "Our company is doing well. Why do people want to change jobs?" He immediately became alert. "Who else wants to leave?" "Your department." I bit my lip, pretending that I had let the cat out of the bag, smiled awkwardly, picked up the cup and walked away quickly, leaving it to him. Unlimited imagination space. I know very well that what Gaosheng hates most is that its employees do anything that is detrimental to the company. I want to plant a seed of doubt in his heart through Tang Mi's mouth. A week later, I received a mass email from the company's Human Resources Department. Sue Miling, director of the planning department, resigned due to personal health reasons. Deputy Director Lu Jun will temporarily take charge of the department's work. What a personal health reason. It seems that Gao Sheng is not heartless and still cares about their old friendship and gives her face. Sue Miling started to make a scene in the office area, walking up to everyone and staring into their eyes, gritting her teeth. Gnashing his teeth, he asked, "Is it you? I know this because of that photo." I sent the photos anonymously to Lu Jun, the deputy director of the department, but I didn't expect him to act so quickly. When Sue Miling came to me, I showed my sympathy for her and even said, "May, Sister Ling, you have made great contributions to the company. There must be some misunderstanding. It will be fine if you talk it out." Her expression was complicated, and 2 seconds later, I saw resentful anger in her eyes. As expected, she ignored Secretary Tang's attempt to stop her and rushed to the president's office to argue. What a stupid woman. She won't cry until she sees the coffin. I found Xinqing's recruitment brochure. "And you're still being stubborn?" Secretary Tang threw the brochure in her face. Gao Shang sent Tang Mi away and asked him to buy stomach medicine for him. The office door closed. After a long time, Su Meiling didn't come out. Seeing that everyone was busy with their work, I pretended to go get some water, passed by that door, and wanted to eavesdrop for a while. Of course you can tell others, but you will have to bear the consequences at your own risk. A colleague who was equally curious passed by, so this was the only sentence I heard. What happened? Does Su Meiling have leverage over Gao Shang? Could it be? I remembered the clear child's voice in the office that day. A few minutes later, Su Meiling came out of the CEO's office in disgrace, her eyes red, and quickly packed up her things west and left the place where she had been loyal for many years in shame. She still gave in. After Su Meiling left, I was able to demonstrate my professional talents and was designated by the Human Resources Department as the second deputy director of the department. But when the head of the Human Resources Department presented the personnel appointment letter at the meeting, Gao Shang actually, there were two big words written on it: not allowed. With a stroke of his pen, he easily destroyed all my efforts and brought me back to my original state in a second. When I came out of the meeting room, I felt completely hopeless. I really don't understand this man. What on earth is he thinking? At this time, the cell phone rang. I glanced at the phone number, took a few quick steps, and locked myself in the stairwell. After all, he is your father. You have only come back once since he got sick. Isn't it a bit hard to explain? Went. My aunt became more and more excited as she spoke, and her hoarse, smoke-smoked voice kept irritating my eardrums. I listened to her complaining and accusing for several minutes, and finally she coughed twice and said slowly, "Hongxia, this is you. That's not right. You called me Hongxia too? You have no respect for your parents." I ignored him and picked my nose while saying, "Which month did I not pay you on time? Tell me yourself. That money is enough. You hired 2 nurses to take care of your father. Who is the doctor in our family? What use will he be if he goes back? Why don't you change him? Come here to make money." She finally stopped talking. I pressed the issue. Whose pocket did all the money I transferred every month go to? I don't want to pursue it. But don't take me for an idiot, right? She hesitated for a few words and finally hung up the phone. I stood in the stairwell for a long time, leaning against the cold fire door, staring at the green kite in the distance outside the window. Someone opened the door on some floor, and the shrill creaking sound brought me back to reality. I stared blankly at the booger on my finger and quickly took out a tissue to wipe it. Yes, I have to work hard here to make money to keep my father alive. I must take down Gao Shang. As long as I can take him down, I'll have everything. Of course, I would not stand still, and I quickly adjusted my strategy. If the career path doesn't work, I can start with my life. After get off work, I didn't leave. I took a taxi and waited near the exit of the company's underground parking lot. As soon as Lee came out, I asked the driver to follow him. The driver said the car was too expensive and kept a distance from it. After following for 12 minutes, we finally arrived at a high-end building, Xinmao Mansion, a famous wealthy mansion on the East 3rd Ring Road where every inch of land is worth a lot of money. District. I sighed, but I didn't retreat. After 4 days of surveillance, I discovered that Gao Shang would go to a gym across the street from the community at 8:30 every night, club, and return on time at 9:30. He obviously has obsessive-compulsive disorder and strictly follows his own schedule every day. I had an instant inspiration. I definitely can't afford to live in Xinmao Mansion, but I can rent a small apartment of 440 square meters in a mid-range community 2 streets away. Still affordable. I moved overnight. 2 days later, I was settled in and immediately went to the fitness club and signed up for a membership card. When Gao Shang saw me, a hint of surprise clearly flashed across his poker face. I rolled my eyes and muttered at a volume that he could just hear. Speechless, as an employee, I don't have any freedom at all. Yes, what kind of evil fate is this? He didn't say a word and went over there to do barbell squats. After finishing 4 sets, he wanted to do leg press again, but I was occupying the equipment he usually used, and the other one was also being used by someone else. He frowned and poked at me like a telephone pole. I did it on purpose. I have already figured out his daily fitness habits, what exercises he does first, what equipment he uses later, and I know it all. Choo-choo. I just want to break his plan, challenge his obsessive-compulsive disorder, and force him to interact with me. He looked at the fitness tracker and growled at me. Please hurry up. I remained unmoved, completely in my own rhythm, maintaining a slow and regular breathing cue. After 3 sets of leg kicks, I slowly got off the machine, looked him straight in the eye and said, "At the company, you are my boss, but it is time to get off work. In my eyes, you are no different from other members. Why should I let you go?" The muscles on his face were twitching and he stared at me fiercely. This is exactly the effect I want. I pretended to be indifferent, whistling, wiping my sweat and stretching. He was already stretching his legs on the machine, his eyes still slanting me. I went to do calf raises, and before I was done, he was in line next to me. I sneered and complained quietly. What bad luck! I should have known not to do leg training today. He finally couldn't stand it anymore and said coldly, "Do you believe me I will buy this store?" I made a face and imitated Crayon Shinchan's voice and said, "Is it great to be rich? Yes, in order to break the huge gap between us, I have to grab all kinds of details and continue to suppress him." He little by little softened the thing he was proud of. Over the next few nights, I went to the gym, always arriving early to intentionally stagger my time with his. He had just arrived, but I had already started practicing the last item and would be leaving soon. It's because we both train the same parts every day. I don't like seeing your poker face. Makes me annoyed. I explained to him. In the limited time we spend together every day, I continue to attract people with my impressive figure and the occasional panting sounds during training. The eyes of the opposite sex, of course there are also eyes of the same sex. A lot of people took turns to talk to me, and personal trainers also came to me to teach me diligently, even though I had already said, I don't buy lessons. Facing everyone's teasing, I never took the bait, never responded, and put on an attitude of being very high-minded and difficult to conquer. I also deliberately gave Gao Sheng the cold shoulder. I don't believe he wouldn't be interested in me. One day I was doing supine flies and there were 3 big guys watching me. I inadvertently glanced over and saw Gao Sheng peeking at me. I was a little discouraged at first, but just with that one look, I instantly felt confident. Sure enough, when I passed by him, he suddenly handed me a bottle of sports drink. I stepped back dramatically and looked at him with confusion. I bought too much. If you don't want it, I'll throw it away, he said with a cold face. But I acted even colder than him. You're only giving me things you want to throw away? I don't want that. After saying that, he walked away, but he felt very happy. I won't just climb up when I'm given a pole. I just want him to feel that I, Yuan Jia, am different from other women. Very different. And rejection is actually the best seduction. On the 11th day of my gym session, after a fierce spinning session, the trainees surrounded the coach and left. Before I knew it, I was the only one left in the room. I wiped the sweat off my face with a towel and turned around to find Gao Sheng standing at the door. Actually, I already knew it. He was just staring at me from outside. The reason I lingered in the room was to create a chance to be alone with him. I pretended to be surprised. What are you looking at? I didn't fight with you for the equipment today. After saying that, he grabbed the towel and kettle and walked straight out. When I got to him, he grabbed my wrist. Before I could scream, his index finger was already touching my lips. I had never been so close to him. Looking at his newly emerged stubble and his prominent Adam's apple, smelling the layers of his body, the rich scent of cologne made me unable to distinguish my own heartbeat from his. What? I asked unhappily. His eyes narrowed into willow leaf shapes, and he suddenly smiled wickedly and said calmly, "What do you think?" His warm breath sprayed on my face, as if instantly igniting every hair on my body. I looked up at the surveillance camera facing us, and just when I was about to be reserved, he kissed me without hesitation. "Come down." His kiss was greedy and brutal. My body became lighter and lighter, and I felt like he was sucking me dry. Yes, I finally climbed onto Gao Sheng's bed, which was ridiculously big. After the tenderness, I hugged his arm and planned to close my eyes and rest for a while, but he suddenly slapped me. "You went to such great lengths to get close to me, isn't that just for this?" He put on that cold poker face again, and his eyes pierced straight at me like flying knives. I was stunned by his blow. and my heart couldn't help but shake violently. I was about to say something in defense when another slap landed on the other side of my face. Bitch! My eyes were swollen and my chest felt like it had been punched hard. But no matter what, I am finally together with Gao Shang. As long as the goal is achieved, I can tolerate any flaws. I put away my pretended arrogance and became docile in front of him. During the day, our relationship is that of boss and employee. We rarely interact with each other in the company, and even if we occasionally socialize, he is always strict. Very picky. At night, I am his intimate girlfriend. After the extreme enthusiasm, he would coldly order me to go to the small guest room alone. Sleep, but I don't care. I am no longer a naive girl who has just begun to fall in love. I can put myself in a good position. So I slept soundly every night. In order to repay my cooperation, he would occasionally take me shopping in the mall, only to big-name stores, bags, shoes, clothes, and perfume. He let me choose between water and lipstick, but I had to make a quick decision, swipe my card and leave. I suppressed my inner greed and kept the amount within 100,000 yuan each time, not daring to spend too much. He showed no unhappiness and spent money without hesitation. A strange idea came to my mind. If I only ask for a little bit each time, can I? Is it given an unlimited extension? I was shocked by my own thoughts. On the day we had been together for a month, Gao Shang took me to a charity reception. I wore the Prada crystal embroidered dress he bought for me and followed him with my head held high. He was soon surrounded by several bigwigs, who greeted each other, chatted and laughed, and talked about international financial trends all the time. My presence soon seemed a little tiring. He gave me a look, and I went to linger at the buffet alone. Although I am not unfamiliar with such occasions, I can sense that many eyes are on me, wandering around, digging into every detail of me from head to toe. Seemed to be whispering. That feeling is like a thorn in the back. I fell into that strong feeling of loneliness again. Just as I poured a glass of wine, Gao Shangqiong suddenly stood behind me. He raised his right hand, helped me tidy up my hair and said softly, "Move over here and give up the rented house." I stared at him blankly, knowing that he never joked. That small guest room officially became my bedroom. The closet is full of clothes and bags that Gao Shang bought for me. Luxury goods recycling shop. All are sold at a low price. I am too lazy to bargain. Most of those old clothes have been sent to luxury stores. After I moved in, I realized that Gao Shang actually likes to play role-playing games. Every week is different. In order to achieve the best effect and not distort the character, I have to secretly study the characteristics of each profession after work during the day. Features try to do more homework. But he never gets into his role and rarely interacts with me, just watching me perform a one-man show. Don't you like acting? This time I'll let you act to your heart's content. He always says things that shock me. Everything looks harmonious. Until one night when I got up to go to the bathroom, I pushed open his bedroom door because I couldn't help it. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Gao Shang was not in his bed. I tiptoed around the villa, looking for him everywhere, and finally found a mysterious little room. There was a blue-gray wooden door, with dim light seeping through the crack at the bottom. Gao Shang is inside. Since I moved in, I have never been inside. The door is always locked, and I have never seen him open it in front of me. Did he kill someone and hide the body in there? All kinds of bloody and horrific scenes came one after another, making my scalp numb. But I knew his temper, so I didn't dare knock on the door to disturb him, so I could only lie on the door and eavesdrop. The sound inside was very muffled and could not be heard clearly. After a while, the sound of pulling a stool came into my ears. I was so frightened that I broke out in a cold sweat. Before he pushed the door open, I tiptoed back to the cabin and pretended to sleep. But I'm really curious. The most attractive men are those who have secrets. What I love most in my life is solving puzzles. One day, while he was out for a walk after dinner, I quickly slipped into the study and found the key to the room in the desk drawer. Teaspoon. My heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. I held my breath and decisively turned the key to open the wooden door. It was pitch black inside. I fumbled around for a few times before finally turning on the light. The light was actually a dark red like blood. But there are only some professional recording equipment on the table. It seems that all the radio dramas he posted online were recorded here. I glanced around and didn't see anything strange. until I saw a coffin-sized iron box. It was painted black and was out of place with everything around it. Enter. My heart was stuck in my throat. I almost trembled as I opened the box, but the contents inside made me begin to doubt my own judgment of people. It turned out to be a box full of children's toys. I flipped through them casually and saw various Ultraman and little dinosaurs with similar shapes. Below them there was a strange round cookie box. I opened it and found an obviously old Gundam model. It's just incomprehensible. Where are you? What are you doing? I vaguely heard the door closing and Gao Shang calling me. I was in a panic and hurriedly closed the lid, turned off the lights and locked the door again. When Gao Shang walked into the balcony, I was lying on a bench reading a book about the marketing of electrical appliances. I smiled at him and said, "Are you back?" He looked at the blue-gray wooden door, then looked towards the study. My heart trembled. I seemed to have forgotten to close the study door. Fortunately, he didn't say anything and went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. But I still don't understand, it's just a recording studio. What's so shameful about it? As for those toys, does he really have children? But they can't be hidden in a secret room, right? With this question in mind, 2 days later, I secretly went to the recording studio to check again. But there were no new discoveries. Am I overthinking? Maybe those were his own toys as a child? Or he just used them to help him get into the radio drama. A child detective character in the film? But anyway, I can see that he seems to take his hobby of being an online voice actor very seriously. In order to tie myself firmly to Gao Shang, I used my limited spare time to secretly sign up for voice actor training class. I want to give him a surprise and record a radio drama with him in the future. Because I know that if you want a man to pay more attention to you, in addition to understanding and appreciating him, you also need to find some common ground. Make him feel that you two have similar interests and are a perfect match. But I didn't expect that when I finished the quick course and performed the lowly and mature voice in front of him, he didn't. Happy but got mad at me. He slapped me 4 times in a row, then threw me hard onto the sofa, hitting my ankle bruised by the coffee table. I had never seen such a savage side of him. I was terrified. That night, I lay on the empty double bed in the guest room, staring at the crystal chandelier above my head, and I almost didn't sleep all night. What is the secret behind this? Am I almost out? Fortunately, the next morning, Gao Sheng asked the cook to fry an extra portion of bacon and eggs for me as usual. I sat opposite him, pretending to be relaxed while eating this precious breakfast. "Are there any works?" he asked suddenly. I was stunned. The morning light shone directly in from his back, a little dazzling, as if it had plated his body with a circle of gold. "Just treat it as an interview. You have to give me a demo first. Otherwise, how can I assign you a role?" I was delighted and said, "I'll give it to you before lunch break." In the evening, Gao Shang said that I had a good voice and he might consider letting me act with him. I struck while the iron was hot and suggested that I could use what I had learned to help him run the online community and promote the finished radio drama. Operations. I have analyzed the traffic support policies of several major audio platforms. Our works are of good quality and have a good audience. I will definitely be able to quickly rush to their list. I took out the detailed plan I had prepared long ago. He took it and looked at it for a long time, definitely more carefully than he read documents at the company. After a long silence, he raised one corner of his mouth and said, "I'll give you 500,000 first as the initial funding." I was so shocked that I couldn't close my mouth. He smiled indulgently. "You are useless." After saying that, he came over, picked me up and walked towards his bedroom. He worked particularly hard that night as if a reward? I could finally enter that recording studio with my own eyes open. Every Friday night after working out, I would record with Gao Shang for nearly 2 hours. The club is called White Rabbit Alliance and has 13 members. Some write scripts, some make promotional graphics, and some are responsible for shouting everywhere, some maintain audience comments, the rest are voice actors. Although they were scattered all over the country and Gao Shang had never met them, they had a clear division of labor and worked closely together just like a small cloud company. We usually get the script 2 days before recording so we can make some preparations. But Gao Shang was very picky and always changed every line of dialogue beyond recognition. and gave feedback to the screenwriter on the revisions. The work will naturally be done by me. Sometimes the script had obviously been significantly revised to suit his ideas, but after taking a look at it, he would still ask for further revisions. I smiled on the surface, but I couldn't help screaming in my heart, "You bastard boss, you bastard client." I have to say that Gao Shang really has a talent for being a voice actor. As long as he puts on headphones and gets close to the microphone, he can enter the role of a 5-year-old boy in a second. Not only is his voice realistic, but he can also. His thinking was no different from that of a child, which frightened me so much that I was distracted many times. I didn't perform badly. In the first week, I played a naive female college student. In the second week, I played a street-smart girl. The third week was a tough one, as I had to play 2 roles, between a 6-year-old girl and an 80-year-old woman. Flexible conversion. It's okay. It's just that the feeling of a little girl is not enough. I'll find you 2 books on child psychology. Look. I suddenly realized what was going on and quickly took the 2 books, treating them like treasures. At the same time, I have successfully connected with the 3 major audio platforms. With my personal charm and negotiation skills, I have been able to several good promotional spots. With the support of the platform, the number of listens to the album soared and it quickly made it to the category list. Although Gao Shang was still serious and acted as if he didn't care, I could see that he was extremely happy. He was happy, and of course I was happy too. I took advantage of the opportunity to manage the club and online operations to create a new name, and secretly, he embezzled 100,000 yuan of funds, part of which was given to his aunt and part of which was deposited in his own small treasury. Not bad, you are still somewhat useful. When Gao Shang praised me like this, I put on an extremely sweet smile. I have to admit that I did have a strange sense of accomplishment outside of the company's business. Even if I'm a gold digger, I want to be more technical. It is only natural to earn a living based on your own ability. Everything went smoothly around Gao Shang, and I thought I was already his closest person, but I started to feel a little proud. After another recording session, I asked him what was going on with the box of toys. His expression changed instantly, showing the same ferocious expression as when he hit me last time. Don't ask questions that you shouldn't ask, put your mind at ease. Location. I quickly restrained myself. The look in his eyes left me with a lingering fear. But I became more and more curious. There must be something fishy going on. This weekend, Gao Shang took me to a dinner party for the first time. Don't wear anything too revealing, look more professional, he told me. The location is in a luxurious restaurant. As soon as you enter the hall, you will be greeted by a huge golden dragon sculpture, which is very imposing. I looked at the dragon's eyes, which seemed to be piercing with spirit, baring its teeth and claws to show off to me. This place is very expensive and the money is small. Don't come in. But now I have Gao Shang's pass, and I feel very confident. After entering the box, I was stunned before I could even smile in a proper way. The man sitting on the sofa turned out to be my boyfriend many years ago. This is Mr. Zhou I told you about. Gao Shang turned to me. This is my employee. Xiaojia Home Appliances Project. She was the one following me all along. I quickly smiled and shook hands with Lao Zhou, feeling so embarrassed that my scalp was tingling. Lao Zhou looked at me meaningfully and held my hand tightly, saying, "It's our first meeting. Please take care of me." I breathed a sigh of relief, quickly and naturally pulled my hand back, and looked at Gao Shang again. He was still holding Zhang. Poker face. The dishes were served and they talked about cooperation while eating. I was in a daze, my mind was full of past events with Lao Zhou. I had been with Lao Zhou for a year and a half. I was still a graduate student at that time. His wife's family was very wealthy, so he rented me an apartment near the school, and we could only see each other every Tuesday. Maybe his wife doesn't treat him as a human being. When he is with me, his biggest hobby is to using foul language to complain about the tigress at home. Not only did he curse himself, he also asked me to join in. In order to make him happy, I made a fuss about every detail based on his daily descriptions of his wife. Later, he even asked me to write a short essay every week, and then read it aloud in front of him. The longer the writing and the more intense the tone, the more relieved he felt, and occasionally he would applaud with excitement. I almost emptied my brain of all the dirty words I had stored, and used up all the characters I hated during my growing up experience. type. But hard work pays off. In addition to more than 30,000 yuan in pocket money every month, I have also improved my writing skills. It is always good to have many skills. I know very well that I can't rely on my youth for the rest of my life. He decisively broke up with me before his wife found out. The breakup fee was a small property. I was afraid that his wife would find out about it, so I found someone to sell it in time. I sold it for around 800,000 yuan and used it to pay off part of my father's foreign debt. But I didn't expect that after only a few years of not seeing each other, Lao Zhou, this pet dog, had completely controlled his wife's family. The assets are so strong that Gao Sheng can come in person to negotiate cooperation. Come on, drink. Lao Zhou suddenly raised his glass towards me, scaring me so much that I quickly came back to my senses. He looked at me with a half-smile, his eyes full of amusement, and then turned to ask Gao Sheng, "Can you stand it? It's quite harmonious." I immediately sat up straighter, feeling as if I had been slapped twice in the face. Gao Sheng asked me in a deep voice, "Do you know each other?" I was dumbfounded. I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know where to put my hands. I accidentally knocked over the wine glass, and the red wine flowed down the tablecloth. It flows freely, staining my white shirt red. Fortunately, Lao Zhou spoke up in time. "I don't know him. I was just asking casually. I can see what your relationship is. Stop playing dumb with me." After saying that, he gave me a wicked smile which made me feel creepy. I went to the bathroom to take care of my clothes. When I came back, I found that Gao Sheng no longer looked at me and seemed unhappy. Could he be jealous of me? I felt inexplicably happy. Soon, the two had discussed the key terms of the cooperation and were at a stalemate, with neither willing to give in. Lao Zhou snapped his fingers to call the waiter, whispered a few words, then leaned back on the sofa and looked at me, and Gao Sheng's face jumped back and forth. In less than 3 minutes, a team of waiters suddenly came in, each holding a few wine glasses of different sizes. A row of depth charges was quickly placed in front of us. Lao Zhou reached out and pulled, and the small cups filled with Maotai fell into the beer cups below one by one, splashing a lot of beer. A burst of beer foam. "Come on, if you drink all this today, I will agree to your terms." Gao Sheng narrowed his eyes. His profile was cold as ice. "Let Gao Sheng drink?" I know Gao Sheng never drinks liquor because he has a bad stomach. Our president Gao never. I was about to refuse on his behalf when Lao Zhou suddenly pointed at me. "Who said that? I asked you to drink." "Okay." Without even thinking, I suddenly stood up, picked up the wine glass at the edge and put it into my mouth. It's okay, a little choking, but not bad to drink. I just picked up the next cup, but Gao Sheng snatched it away and slammed it on the table, saying angrily, "Open up. How can you have any say?" I don't know where I got the courage from. I pushed him away, picked up the wine glass, and stared at Lao Zhou with my neck stiff. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just his canary. I'm the one in charge of this project. Who are you looking down on? Do you want wine? Come on, whoever gives in first is a grandson. After saying that, he drank it all in one gulp. Old Zhou was stunned. Gao Sheng sat down in silence and did not try to stop me. After a few drinks, I started to feel dizzy. Before I was completely drunk, I felt Gao Sheng pick me up. I forced myself to look at him. His face was, it was a look I had never seen before. On the way home, I leaned on Gao Sheng's shoulder with my eyes closed under the influence of alcohol. He instinctively dodged for a moment, but after 2 seconds, finally he turned my head and let me snuggle up to him. But the next second, something shocking happened to me. He actually reached out and hugged my waist and called me in a vague voice like a little boy when recording a radio drama. "Mom." I was stunned and completely sober. I finally pushed him away, and just as I was about to withdraw, he burst into tears again. The crying was very shocking and it was very sad to listen to. He held my arms tightly, breathlessly saying, "I will be very good. Mom, don't leave." Damn, why are you crazy? I'm the one who was forced to drink. The next afternoon, I secretly went to consult a psychologist and learned that Gao Sheng was most likely suffering from split personality. It is estimated that his mother abandoned him or ignored him for a long time during his childhood, which led to his lack of emotions. He had been suppressing his desire for maternal love. This long-term self-contradiction caused his personality disorder. I gasped. When I came out of the psychiatric clinic, my cell phone rang twice. I quickly took it out and thought it was Gao Sheng looking for me. It was Xiaoli, who was previously expelled from Gao Sheng because of Su Meiling. After leaving her job, she never found a suitable job. Feeling guilty, he asked Xiaoli to come and help him without telling Gao Sheng. He could earn several thousand yuan a month. Sister Jia, we have reached an agreement on the opening screen for Li ZFM. We can give you the amount you asked for. Okay, but when you keep your account, keep the original number. Clear? Yes, I took the opportunity to embezzle about 30,000 yuan. But soon, they will flow into my aunt's account and become my father's life-saving money. I looked up and the sky was clear blue. 2 days later, Gao Sheng took the initiative to confront me. He admitted that he sometimes turned into a little boy with a mental age of about 5 or 6 years old. The frequency was not fixed, but each time he turned into a little boy with a mental age of about 5 or 6 years old. This lasts for an hour or two. He asked me to play the role of a mother at appropriate times and release my maternal nature as much as possible. Just treat it as a radio play with me. He paused and stared into my eyes. When I played role-playing games before, haven't you always hoped that I could cooperate with you? Now is your chance, so take advantage of it. Seeing me pursing my lips, he added softly, "There will be a reward for good performance." I immediately agreed. Shall we start now? I'm not in the right state right now. I'll talk about it when I feel like it. I nodded with a lot of questions in my mind, such as, when you become a child, do you still have the intelligence of an ordinary adult? What happened during the process? Can you still remember it after returning to normal? Under what factors will it be easier to trigger? How about your role transformation? But I held back and didn't dare ask. He looked fierce and dignified. Don't tell anyone, otherwise you will bear the consequences. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Hey, don't be so mean. I've remembered it. When have I ever made you worry about me? I thought of Su Meiling. The day she was fired, she must have used this as a handle to make a final struggle. But she finally succumbed to Gao Sheng's tyranny. Now, I have also swallowed this secret. It makes me feel very excited. Besides being excited, I also felt relieved. Even if Gao Sheng got tired of me and dumped me, at least I still had a chance to go back to my hometown. I will be covered by a substantial hush money. It's so cool. Since then, I have switched between the 3 roles. An employee during the day, a girlfriend at night, and a new mother with little parenting experience at night. Mom. The huge sense of contrast and dislocation attracted me to fully immerse myself in this magical game. Every time I finished recording a radio play, I would grab a few toys from the big iron box and try every way to amuse him and coax him. Happy. Sometimes when we came out of the recording studio, he hadn't turned back into an adult yet, so I would hug him, pat his shoulders, touch his head. I have hypnotized myself countless times. I will just experience the difficulty of raising a child in advance. At least I don't have to give. He changes diapers. Over time, I think this kind of relationship is pretty good. The essence of a relationship is to get what you want from each other. By taking out a loan, you can maximize your spiritual pleasure and get rid of all the troubles in the world. Every time I seem to temporarily take off the name Yuan Jia and hide in a strange identity, thinking about do something completely different, peel it off and reperceive everything in reality. It seems to have experienced a special meaning. Rebirth on. What's wrong with having an obedient eldest son out of nowhere? Who would have thought that the usually aloof and scary boss would have such a contrasting and cute side? Just as I was thinking, Gao Sheng, who had turned into a boy, folded a paper frog for me according to the method I taught him. Mom, look. I succeeded. On his face, I saw the same expression I had when I was expecting praise after completing a plan. I stroked his face, took out a white rabbit candy, and said in the tone of a sister on the children's channel, "Hello, Xiao Sheng. Great." Putting aside our physical appearance, we are becoming more and more like a real mother and son. Everything was harmonious at first, but strangely, Gao Sheng gradually seemed to become cold towards me. He no longer went to bed with me so enthusiastically, and he called me mom less often. He even rarely let me participate in. Every time I asked him about the recording of the radio drama, he always said, "There is no role suitable for you at the moment." I know this is not a good sign, but I dare not act rashly. I have no other way to manage online communities. But one day after we finished, he looked at me without saying a word, as if to say, "Get out of my bed right now." I was smart enough to put on my underwear quickly and return to the small guest room. I tossed and turned, racking my brains to think over and over again. What exactly is the problem? After several days of secret observation in the company, I finally found the problem. Tang Ying, who works in the same department as me, is having an affair with Gao Sheng. I saw it with my own eyes in the hallway. She reached out and grabbed his waist, and he smiled and patted her, but in response. At first I was furious and really wanted to rush over and use the 18 dragon subduing palms on Tang Ying's face. But if you think about it, it's actually normal. After all, Gao Sheng is handsome, rich and talented. He is simply the male version of a heartthrob. Many female colleagues applied for the job just to find a chance to get into Mr. Gao's bed. They just did the same thing as me. Why should I be angry? Each monster has its own origin, but Tang Song is the only one. It all depends on one's own ability. Just when I was planning to regroup and launch a counterattack, I learned an important piece of information from my colleague. Interest. Tang Ying is Su Miling's best friend. They even went to high school and college together. I felt like I was struck by lightning. It turned out that my opponent was not simple. Su Miling must have instilled all of Gao Sheng's likes and dislikes into Tang Ying, which is why she was able to succeed in such a short time. Su Miling had obviously figured out that the reason she was forced to leave was actually because of me behind the scenes. So she instructed Tang Ying to let her best friend take revenge on me on her behalf. Oh, it's true that wildfires can never be extinguished. They will spring up again with the spring breeze. The afternoon I learned the truth, I ran into Tang Ying on my way to the bathroom. She looks and dresses very pure, with long straight hair, natural makeup, small nose and small eyes, light-colored despair. It's like I've never been in love before. Obviously, Gao Sheng likes the contrast in her. Pure and innocent on the outside, but wild and coquettish on the inside. She took the initiative to greet me with a kind tone and a smile in her eyes. I was too lazy to talk to her and walked past her quickly. In the first fifth of a second when I passed by her, I clearly saw there was a hint of provocation in her eyes. I further enlightened myself. Since I can hook up with Gao Sheng, others can naturally do it too. He is not my boyfriend. At most he is a scarce public resource. Who can hold on and who can hold on longer depends on who has better skills. Moreover, although Gao Sheng looks handsome and decent, he is still a pervert at heart. The next day at noon, I found that Gao Sheng did not go out to eat, but walked into the mother and baby store with a serious face. I followed him quickly, wanting to report to him about the ranking performance of the radio drama on major audio platforms. But I heard him close the door. I held my breath, bit my lip and eavesdropped. He turned into a little boy and called Mom twice. I felt as if all the blood in my body was rushing to my head. When I put my left eye close to the crack in the door, I saw something even more shocking. Gao Sheng was squatting on the ground, his head resting on Tang Ying's arms, his face full of smiles, greedily sucking the light blue liquid in her hand. Colored bottle. She was actually feeding him formula. What a clever trick. I was furious and my possessiveness was instantly aroused, as if someone was trying to take my child away. Just when I was panicking and urgently reviewing the valuable experience my mother taught me, planning to fight against the green tea bitch, Su Miling, she teamed up with her good sister and somehow found out the transaction details of my account and reported me to Gao Sheng. Petition. Gao Sheng understood immediately and found out that I was embezzling the funds of the radio drama club. He was furious and threw things like crazy, no matter how expensive they were, grabbing whatever he saw. A piece of stone hit my face and scratched my eyebrow bone. I was terrified, watching him grab the European-style colored glass table lamp and approach me step by step. I guess he was going to hit me on the head with that thing. But I won't give up. I must stop him from hurting me further. At the critical moment, I took out 2 white rabbit candies from my pocket and said in a coaxing tone, "Little Sheng, be good. Look what Mom has prepared for you." Gao Sheng was indeed stunned, and the hand that had already raised the desk lamp stopped in midair. I had a clue in my mind, so I softened him further. "Xiao Sheng is the best and Mommy loves you the most. Come quickly. Let Mommy hold you. Hug." As I said this, I stretched out one arm and kept waving at him with the other hand. The lamp fell on the carpet. Gao Sheng smiled and threw himself into my arms. I breathed a sigh of relief, patted his head, and whispered that he was a good boy. Obviously, this is a milestone in our relationship. I found a diary from his first year of junior high school at the bottom of the big iron box. It was filled with a lot of his childhood memories including some descriptions of his mother. He wrote in one of his articles that on his 5th birthday, his mother, who had always ignored him, gave him a bag of White Rabbit candy. He jumped for joy and ate only 4 in one go. When his mother saw it, she slapped him in the face and said, "I shouldn't have bought it for you. Don't you want the tooth?" He covered his face and cried. But his mother didn't give up. She grabbed the remaining 4 candies and threw them out of the window. He went out like crazy to pick them up, but only found one. The rest had fallen into the sewer. I went in, but I couldn't catch it. From this I learned that White Rabbit milk candy has special emotional significance to him. Now I have transformed it into a weapon. It's like a switch that I can instantly activate his little boy side with just a press of the button. Of course I won't reconcile with him so quickly. 3 seconds later, I grabbed his shoulders and pulled him away. In his shock and confusion, I shook him off. He slapped her. He burst into tears, still very shocked, and sounded particularly sad. I adopted the stern tone of an elder and recited aloud some phrases from my diary. "Get out of here, I'm upset. If I say no, then it's no. Shut up right now. Would you like to cry again? I don't have a son as stupid as you. Look at Lu Bin. I can tell from the looks of it that you have no future, and will be a loser in the future. I don't care about you anymore. Do whatever you want." Every word uttered by his mother had caused indelible damage to his fragile heart. This is what he fears most in his heart, and it is his weakness that he has never shown to anyone. I kept yelling at him loudly until my saliva was flying everywhere. I deliberately acted very emotional, and his tears couldn't stop falling, but he didn't dare to cry out loud. I left him behind, kicked open the wooden door of the recording studio, and took out the old Gundam from the cookie box in the big iron box. Model. This was the only toy his mother gave him before she died. I imitated the way he held up the lamp just now and lifted his beloved Gundam high up. He really collapsed, clasped his hands together, and begged for mercy loudly. And I still didn't stop. I imitated the tone of an angry mother. "Your radio play has been surpassed by someone else today. Are you willing to be second? Mom is really disappointed in you. Extremely. You went out and drank another woman's milk powder? What if it's poisonous? You're betraying your mother. If you dare to do this again, Mom will not want you anymore. Go marry another man and give birth to a better and more obedient child. Baby, you can only be loyal to your mother. I am your only mother. All others are fake. Remember that, Under my continuous scolding, Gao Sheng was completely unable to resist. He came over immediately and hugged my legs tightly. Xiao Sheng knows he was wrong, and he will never make Mom angry again. I'm angry. Then I laughed. I know that my good days are yet to come. Since then, Gao Sheng and I have been exchanging roles back and forth inside and outside the company. Just as he gets mad at me in front of his colleagues during the day, I get angry at him like a mother at night. I took out all the unhappiness in my life on him. I bought several bundles of exercise books and punished him with math problems. I was surprised to find that although he was in the state of a child but still with the intelligence of an adult, since the questions from junior high school and high school were not difficult for him, I started forcing him to do advanced mathematics questions and Olympiad questions. If he can't do it, I'll scold him. Aren't you a domineering president? Aren't you awesome? You can't even do such a simple math problem? You're a waste. A good for nothing. You act so high and mighty outside, but you are actually a bitch at heart. A huge bitch. Every time I mention the word bitch, I can't help but feel my eyes swell up. I felt a sense of dignity and control that I had never felt before. That's right, I Yuanjia am the president of a well-known company. Gao Sheng, the one and only absolute ruler. One night, Gao Sheng and I were lying in bed. I took out a White Rabbit candy from under the pillow. Gao Sheng's eyes. He immediately became weak. He asked happily, "Have you read the novel Venus in Fur?" My heart trembled, remembering that he had mentioned in his diary that he stole this book from his father's bookshelf. He was about to finish reading when his mother found out and tore it up in front of him and beat him with a feather duster. From that day on, he felt that there was a strong sense of contempt in his mother's eyes when she looked at him. "I haven't seen it and I'm not interested," I said coldly. "Yes, now the situation has changed. I am the one in control. I don't need to do so many complicated things to please him. Heavy homework." I kicked him to the ground, grabbed the remote control, turned on the TV in the bedroom, and kept switching channels. That night, I had a strange dream. In the dream, I was naked with my arms folded, stepping on a huge shell, floating on the green lake. The shell quickly came to the shore, where there were countless gray figures. Only one was bright yellow, with arms outstretched, jumping. "It's very tall." I squinted my eyes and recognized him as Gao Shang. They surrounded me and called me Venus in unison. Although it was a little confusing, I felt good. So I slowly opened my arms and danced in the sun. After a while, I sprayed white rabbit candy from my mouth at them like a pea shooter. The crowd began to move. They fought hard to grab. The shouts of Venus became louder and louder. When I woke up, I found myself in a cold sweat. Gao Shang was curled up under my armpit, drooling and smacking his lips, really like a child. I hesitated for a long time, but finally reached out and wiped his saliva. As soon as I smelled it, it was indeed the scent of white rabbit. Obviously, I have already imprisoned Gao Shang and completely excluded other women. I don't bother to argue with Su Meiling and Tang Ying anymore, because it's meaningless to give the opponent the biggest blow. It is a complete disregard. But they didn't give up so easily. Tang Ying continued to use her poor parenting method, but was forced to give up by Gao Shang. Fierce resistance. That's because the 4 words "loyal to mother" have established a solid defense system in his heart. If she tried the same trick again, it would not only fail to work, but would also make Gao Shang angry. Soon, Secretary Tang made up an excuse and fired Tang Ying. Only then did Su Meiling and Tang Ying realize that they had been completely defeated. Although I no longer need to try to please Gao Shang, sometimes when I am in a good mood, I will continue to record the radio drama with him. After all, Gao Shang is really talented in this area. Our works have been well received by netizens and are always listed in the platform classification, the top 3 on the list. It would be a pity to give up completely. What's more, I can experience different roles and travel through different lives. I am obsessed with that feeling of detachment and being reborn again and again from other people's stories. In one script, there was a pair of men and women testing each other. One of them was always distant and the other was repeatedly frustrated. Until later, due to a misunderstanding, the male protagonist was almost killed. After the boy detective captured the bad guy, the two finally. Yuzu reveals her heart and moves towards a happy ending. The male lead is a domineering boss. Several boys in our club have tried it, but none of their voices are suitable. Gao Shang squinted at me and said with a poker face, "I can't quickly switch back from Xiao Shang's state to cool me." I rolled my eyes and came up with a solution. We can record the male lead's lines in one go, and then record the little one's lines. For the boys, leave it to them to edit. Gao Shang had no expression on his face and didn't respond. I took it as his tacit agreement. In the recording studio, the dim red light reflected our faces. I put on my headphones, leaned close to the microphone, looked at the bright gold characters running on the teleprompter and read out, "You still. Do you remember the Mayday team building last year? After I separated from you that day, I looked up and found that the clouds in the sky were very beautiful, so I wanted to take a photo. I will send it to you as soon as I get it." At that moment, I suddenly knew that I was done. Gao Shang raised his left eyebrow. I avoided his gaze, licked my lips, and continued reading. "Well, I really want to. I tell you all the little things I encounter, but I am afraid to disturb you." Gao Shang didn't respond immediately. I couldn't help but glance at him. He then said impatiently, "Shout clouds. What is there to take a picture of? If I have to take a picture, let's take a picture of the two of us, the kind with a red background and no hats." I looked straight into his eyes, and for the first time ever, I saw a hint of affection in my eyes. He was the first to look away and return to his cold poker face. "Your acting skills have improved, huh? Have you read a few more books?" I asked. "It's the same with you. You seem to be in a good mood just now. You really acted like an innocent girl." He replied. I grinned and decided to punish him by making him do 2 more pages of math problems later. While debugging the equipment, he said, Who wrote this script? Did someone else write it? How about revising these 2 paragraphs? That's too hypocritical. Who says it's not? I guess it's because of the style. Don't change it. It's out of stock and it's too late to update it. As soon as I finished speaking, he suddenly came over and hugged me from behind. I was about to struggle, but he said in a deep voice, "Don't move." My back was pressed tightly against his chest muscles, and I seemed to be able to feel his heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. All right. He helped me adjust the height of the microphone and then let me go immediately, without even a second of lingering. But I still feel his warm embrace and breath all over my body. What are you still standing there for? Continue recording Xiao Shang's part. I finally came to my senses and took out a white rabbit candy from my pocket. Before feeding him, I couldn't help but touch it. His angular face. He pushed my hand away with disgust. Oh my God, my heart is beating faster again. It's the end. After putting Xiaoxing to sleep that night, I did not stay in his bedroom, but returned to the small guest room. I kept telling myself, "What are you thinking? How can a relationship like yours that cannot be seen in public be successful? What? Based on my early love experience, so-called sincerity is nothing but a fleeting thing. It can't be kept, and it's even more unreliable. Whoever plays the joke will take the lead in the game. Whoever takes it seriously will be deeply hurt, and his spleen and lungs will be torn apart. Yuan Jia, you are a technical gold digger. Making money is the serious matter. Don't forget your original intention." 1. But if I could really be with him forever, it would be nice. Gao Sheng's birthday is coming soon. While he and Secretary Tang were on a business trip, I hired someone to spruce up the second bedroom and turned it into a children's room. A sliding door was built in the middle of the room, dividing the children's room into 2 parts. On the left side there is a desk, bookshelf, and a small blackboard, and a set of exercises. On the right were various toys, including a trampoline and a pleasant goat. Sheep rocking car. The colors of the walls on both sides are also very different. The left side is calm lead gray, and the right side is lively bright yellow. When Gao Sheng saw the rocking car, he was really excited. He switched to Xiao Sheng's state without even eating any candy. Really? Is it really possible? He was rubbing his hands. Of course. I led him to the rocking car, pointed to a box of coins next to it, and added, "Just go ahead. It depends on how many times you sit there." Although I bought the larger version, when he sat on it, his legs still stuck out, which looked very awkward. With my encouragement, he finally put in a coin. After a while, Pleasant Goat began to shake up and down. The special corner flashed red lights and played cheerful cartoon theme songs. Xiao Sheng looked incredulous and said to me with tears in his eyes, "You are simply the best mother in the world." I smiled and looked at him. He wrote in his diary that his mother disdained things like rocking cars, and when he was a child, he never sat on it. Every time, other children played on it and he stood by and watched. One day after school, he took his pocket money and secretly went there to sit for more than an hour. His mother came over, grabbed his ears, pulled him off the rocking car, and slapped him hard on the face. The light slapped his head and made it buzz. "You are the Gao family's child. How can you sit on such childish things? I am not only afraid of losing face, but I am also ashamed." The friends were standing across the street, bursting into laughter. Before long, his mother became completely disappointed with him and labeled him a broken child who would never achieve anything great. She was indifferent to him, didn't care about him, and didn't even try to hide her dislike for her son. Therefore, the rocking car has special emotional significance for him. I expected he would really like it. For this alone, he would generously reimburse me for all the expenses of decorating the children's room. I can make some money from this again. One night, I was in the children's room coaxing Xiao Sheng to sit in the rocking car, and my aunt suddenly called and yelled at me. He yelled, "You are just like your damn mother. You are a slut and irresponsible." My stomach started to churn when I heard her loud, shrill voice. After a brief silence, I picked my nose and said coldly, "Hongxia, don't you just want money again?" After hanging up the phone, I sat on the sofa and was in a daze for a while. Suddenly, I felt sticky on my hands, so I took a piece of paper and wiped it. Wipe. When I returned to the children's room, Pleasant Goat had already started to sway from side to side. and Xiao Shang was still looking at me with a happy face, mumbling something in his mouth, humming something. I suddenly rushed forward, grabbed his ears and pulled him down. He tilted his head, bared his teeth. "Mouth hurts." I slapped him twice and yelled, "Come on, try crying again? Hold it back." Unexpectedly, the angle was not right and the nail scratched a wound about 2 centimeters long on his face, and blood oozed out. I think of the corporal punishment my mother inflicted on me when I was young, just to force me to become better so that I could marry into a wealthy family in the future. She has a strong control desire. She gets up at 6 in the morning and goes to bed at 10 in the evening. As long as I appear under her skin, I will. I have to obey her will unconditionally. I can't even decide which pair of socks to wear every time I go out. Decide. Xiao Shang squatted on the ground, covering his face and crying. For no apparent reason, I also started crying. Seeing that I was crying too, Xiao Shang stopped crying, wiped his tears with the back of his hand, and came over with a smudged face. Mom, don't cry. It's all my fault. I made you angry. I will be a good child in the future. Believe me, I can make a pinky promise with you." As he said this, he stretched out his right little finger and pulled it against mine. Only then did I burst into laughter. Seeing me smile, he also smiled, still smiling brightly. I used a cotton swab dipped in iodine to treat the wound on Xiaoxing's face. Before he turned back into Gao Shang, I used his fingerprint to unlock the phone, transferred 50,000 yuan to me, and told him, "This is a way to honor my mother." He slept on the trampoline for a while, and when he woke up, he looked like an adult. Band-Aid looked at me sideways with great displeasure. He found his phone, unlocked it, and swiped it a few times. I stared at him, my heart in my throat. I was holding a big white rabbit in my right hand, ready to turn him back into Xiao Shang at any time. Fortunately, he didn't say anything. Maybe he hasn't discovered it yet. Looking at his back, I thought to myself, sooner or later, I will legitimately squeeze all your money and become like my mother. Like this, run away and find a more powerful sponsor. But when I thought about Xiaoxing being abandoned for the second time, I suddenly felt soft-hearted again. I am becoming increasingly confused about myself. Less than a week later, my aunt called again and said my father's condition was very serious and asked me to go back to prepare for his funeral. I thought this was another trick she used to get me money, until she recorded a short video of more than 10 seconds for my dad. It took me a long time to click on it, and I found that he was indeed very thin. His eyes were straight, he had an oxygen tube inserted, and he was breathing hard. Seems very shallow. I won't understand it when I get back. You can find someone to take care of it. I'll give you the money. My aunt didn't scold me anymore. After a while of silence, she hung up the phone. I couldn't sleep all night. The next morning, I decided to ask Gao Shang for leave. It's a bit personal. Do you need any help? Need not. I dragged my suitcase and was about to leave. He frowned and asked, "You really don't need me to go with you?" I was stunned and pretended to be relaxed and said, "Mr. President, this is not like your style." On the high-speed train, Xiaoli sent me a WeChat message to report that according to the trend of the past 2 days, our radio drama will be. It will definitely top the Li ZFM charts. I replied to her, "No, we can only stay in second place. Hurry up and boost the current #1. Don't let it fall." Xiaoli was very tactful. He didn't ask any questions and just did as he was told. I want to use this matter to keep Gao Shang hanging. I need money. As soon as we met, my aunt wanted to take me to meet my father. I shook her hand away and said disdainfully, "I am not a god. Can he still see him alive?" My aunt gnashed her teeth in anger, and after a long while she managed to utter, "No matter how bad it is, he is still your father." Seeing that I didn't respond, she took out a stack of bills and test reports from a non-woven bag and said, "Take a look for yourself. In addition to the money you transferred to me, I also paid you more than 17,000 yuan. Please pay me back as soon as possible." I felt like I was hit by something. I smacked my lips, spat on the ground, and started yelling at her. "Hongxia, is he your brother? When his business was still going bankrupt, your Lu Yang had no money to go to school, but he never made it clear with you. Thousands of dollars are being sent to your house, don't think I don't know." Her face instantly turned red, her eyes glared, one hand on her waist, one hand on my nose, and she said, You are old and stupid. If you don't have enough, try calling me Hongxia again. It's really no good without a mother's education. You don't even have the most basic manners. Understand? I listed a bunch of things she had asked my family for in the past, and she finally shut up and stumbled away. After she left, I leaned against the cold stone pillar in the hospital lobby, watching people coming and going, and relaxed for a long time. The hospital cleaner came over with a mop in hand and said with an unhappy look on his face, "Young people spitting on the ground? How uncivilized is that?" I was stunned. I didn't vomit. At this time, the phone rang, and it was a voice message from Gao Shang. It was too noisy around me, so I went into the bathroom, closed the door, and then clicked play. "Mom, I finished the homework you gave me, and I want to ask to watch TV for a while." I don't know why, but my heart warmed. Just as I was about to reply to him, he sent another message. "By the way, Mom, I just accidentally fell down. It hurts so much." It hurts. I suddenly became very worried about him. When I was a kid, I was trapped at home by myself. I felt so lonely that I was burned. Images of bruises, cuts, and cries raced through my mind. "Don't be afraid, little Shang. Mom will rush back to be with you as soon as she finishes dealing with things here." When I came out, my aunt was blocking the bathroom door, looking at me with disdain. "You already have a child. Whose is it? Have you got the certificate? Why didn't you tell me?" I ignored her, didn't wash my hands, and rushed out. After a while, the phone rang again. It was him again, but his voice had changed to Gao Shang's. "No matter what happens, don't you still have me?" My eyes instantly turned red. I clutched my phone tightly and secretly listened to the 2-second voice message many times. 2 days later, my dad died. Thanks to my aunt, all the relatives I hadn't seen for many years came to see me. They all had a snobbish look on their faces. He tried to get my words out of me to find out what I was doing and how much money I could make. Then he started to be sarcastic. I kept selling all the good things that happened to me during my childhood, as if I owed something to each of them. I have never handled a funeral before, and there were a lot of things I didn't understand, but they were unwilling to help me and just wanted to laugh at me. When I was most panicked and helpless, Gao Shang, dressed in black, miraculously appeared in front of me. It's been less than 3 days since I last saw him, and he seems to have lost weight. He hasn't shaved his beard, but he looks a bit more mature. His aura is out of tune with everything here. "What are you doing here?" I asked, holding back my tears. He still had that poker face. "Take care of the employees." My aunt came over immediately, smiled inappropriately, and asked with her head tilted up, "Are you our Xiaojia's husband?" "Male." His left eyelid twitched and he didn't speak for a long time. I quickly answered for him. "What are you thinking? He is my boss. How could he be interested in me?" After saying that, my nose felt sore and I quickly turned my face away. Under Gao Shang's arrangement, the funeral was basically ready. My father's body was placed in the most expensive single room in the funeral home. It takes 4 days of freezing, otherwise life will be difficult. The atmosphere at the funeral was solemn and dignified. The MC's voice was loud and his emotions were high, one wave higher than the other, shaking me dizzy. Brain swelling. Although I was in mourning, I didn't feel like crying at all. I wasn't worried about a dull moment. My relatives, who I hadn't seen for a long time, all put in their best performances. Everyone had a painful expression and cried loudly, as if their father had died. Instead, it makes me, her own daughter, look so unfilial, cold-hearted, and inhumane. After the farewell, the body was taken to be cremated. Gao Shang wanted to accompany me to the next step, but I refused. Next, I chose my aunt and second uncle to accompany me. They kept whispering behind me, guessing how much money Gao Shang had, and evaluating from all dimensions whether I had married into a wealthy family. I pretended not to hear anything. I stood straight with my hands in my pockets, staring blankly at the body being lifted up by the staff, as if it had nothing to do with me. Suddenly, someone hugged me from behind, but I wasn't scared at all. After returning from my hometown, life seems to be no different from before. I work during the day and accompany Gao Shang at night, so my time is fully occupied. He still remembers to record radio dramas regularly. One day I got a new script and found another scene in which a young couple flirted with each other. "Sorry, my voice is not in good condition today. Let Xiaoyu act with you." I will pass the script to you now. She. Gao Sheng frowned, stared at me for a while and said calmly, I don't feel anything when I'm with her. Why are you not in the right mood? Okay, sounds good to me. I couldn't refuse anymore, so I went to the studio with him. As soon as I entered the room, I adjusted the height of the microphone myself. I heard that you love money? Since making money is so hard, why don't you marry me? Gao Sheng has a really good memory. He doesn't even need to look at the teleprompter and can speak to me word for word. Maybe I caught a cold, my face feels hot. I stared at my next line and calmed down for a while before speaking. Jay, actually, you are better than money. You are better than money. There are many rare ones. Every word was very awkward for me to read. It was just a simple line, but Gao Sheng kept shaking his head. I recorded it 7 or 8 times. Did you modify this script? I asked casually after finishing. He raised his left eyebrow. I didn't change it, they just wrote it randomly. On Tuesday noon, I had no appetite and didn't plan to eat. I wanted to go downstairs and take a walk. But when I stepped into the hall, I found that my colleagues had not gone to eat. They gathered in 3 layers inside and outside to form a wall of people, with their backs to the facing me. I don't know what they are looking at. My heart beat faster, so I quickened my pace, trying to go around the crowd. Gao Sheng just jumped into my eyes. He changed into a pure white suit, poked his head out from behind a huge bouquet of wisteria flowers, and said seriously, since they are saying that, why don't we satisfy everyone's expectations and get married? As he spoke, he leaned back, holding the bouquet with one arm with difficulty, and reached into his trouser pocket with the other hand to take out. A small royal blue box came out and walked towards me step by step. The wisteria flowers are so beautiful. The sunlight penetrates the curved glass ceiling and shines on Gao Sheng's white suit, making him look like, glowing like a god descending. I was almost stunned, but amid the crowd's booing, I didn't respond and just ran away. I ran along the street, my head in my hands. People were looking at me, but I didn't care and ran for my life. Until I heard someone calling me from behind. It was Gao Sheng. Come back. Come back here quickly, he shouted louder and louder. I didn't go back, but I just stood there. He caught up with me quickly, grabbed my wrist, and dragged me into an esports hall on the street. The waiter said, I'll give you 2,000 and arrange a single room for me immediately. Gao Sheng slammed the door loudly, making me tremble. All his previous violent behaviors quickly flashed through my mind. I couldn't help but worry about whether the room was soundproof, and whether the waiter could hear me calling for help. To embarrass him would be simply courting death. I closed my eyes and waited for the beating, but I heard him say, I know you're a gold digger. I was startled, slowly opened my eyes, and looked for him in the dimness. The light strip above his head was shining brightly, and his eyes were deep and firm, as if he could see into my heart. I didn't know how to respond. He continued, although you love money, you are still different from those women. Look, we share the same pain and can understand each other. You are also capable and can help me run the company in the future. Then the 2 of us, no, the 4 of us can officially be together. It's good to love each other and depend on each other, isn't it? I was completely stunned. My left hand tightly grasped the remaining white rabbit candy in my pocket, and my body was still shaking uncontrollably. Gao Sheng raised his hand and touched my head, and helped me to fix my hair and said with a smile, What? I am so happy that I can't say it. Talked. I looked up at him again, stared at him for a few seconds before asking, Are you? Really? He grinned, and it was probably the first time I had ever seen him laugh as an adult. I am who I am. Of course it's true. Whether it's Gao Sheng or Xiao Sheng, I'm serious. As he said this, he stretched out the little finger of his left hand and wanted to make a pinky promise with me. I found myself in tears. Under his firm gaze, I slowly raised my right hand. I decided to give myself a chance.